Let me talk for a few minutes about comic books. In particular, what I want to talk about is the ages of comics. Not a whole lot of people will disagree that Action Comics #1 started the Golden Age. First appearance of Superman in comic book form. Excuse me. First Superman story in comic book form. There are people that will argue that his first appearance was actually an advertisement in another comic book. And I'm not really going to disagree with them. It's not worth the trouble. But Action Comics #1, the first story featuring Superman and having his first cover appearance, kicked off the Golden Age. So what is the Golden Age? Or what are ages in general? A comic book age is an explosion of content in comics related to a particular genre. In the case of the Golden Age, it was costumed heroes. Superman, Batman, Captain America, Wonder Woman, The Flash, Green Lantern, Captain Marvel. All of these were Golden Age heroes that appeared not too long after Superman. And that's the Golden Age. By the time World War II rolled around, people were starting to lose interest in the heroic superhero comics. And the Golden Age started to die out. By 1948, the Golden Age was gone. So people that say the Golden Age of comics was from June of 1938 to the Silver Age Showcase #4 in 1955. Well, I'm sorry, but you're full of crap. The Golden Age ended in World War II. So what takes its place? Well, we have a new era of comics. We have comics, more Western comics are being published, more adventure comics, like Tarzan and and Nyoka and a lot of other things like that. Westerns were being very prevalent. Romance comics first started making the scene. And of course, the horror genre, the pre-code era, if you will. Later on, people started calling this the Atom Age or the Atomic Age of comics. Some people, not universally accepted. It should be, but it's not. Then we come to the Silver Age, which most people say the Silver Age started with Showcase #4 in 1955. I don't necessarily agree with that. There were other comics that were more important than Flash's first appearance. As a matter of fact, Flash wasn't that popular a character. And that can be seen, if I can find my notes, by the fact that his first appearance, of course, was Showcase #4. He didn't appear again for another 6 months in 1957. September 1956 was first Flash comic, the first Flash appearance. June of 1957 was the second Flash appearance. Challengers of the Unknown, first appearance was Showcase #6. Their second appearance was Showcase #7. Lois Lane's first appearance as a standalone character, which wasn't really standalone, because Superman was always around somewhere, but featuring her as the title character, was Showcase #9 in August of 1957. And then she was in #10 in October 1957. Back to back, just like Challengers of the Unknown. Then in December 1957, we have another Challengers of the Unknown comic. Where is the next Flash? Well, in February 1958, showcase number 12 came out. Challengers of the Unknown again. To me, that means Challengers of the Unknown at the time was more popular than the Flash. April of 1958, the third Flash appearance. Almost a year after, well, no, let's see. A year and a half after his first appearance, we have the third appearance. So about every 6 months, he's showing up. In April of 1958, also, Lois Lane got her own title. Superman's Girlfriend, Lois Lane, #1, has a cover date of April 1958, the same time that the third Flash comic shows up in Showcase 13. The very next month, in May of 1958, Challengers of the Unknown get their first comic. Challengers of the Unknown, #1, cover dated May of 1958. The next month, we have Showcase number 14, the fourth appearance of the Flash. Again, nearly 6 months. In 2 years, you had 4 Flash comics. In less than a year, you have Lois Lane getting her own title. Showcase number 17, the first Adam Strange. Showcase number 18, the second Adam Strange. In March of 1959, almost a year after Lois Lane got her own title, the Silver Age Flash, Barry Allen, appears in Flash number 105. They pick up the numbering from the Golden Age Flash, or from the previous Flash. In September of 1959, you have Suicide Squad in The Brave and the Bold, number 25. In Showcase number 21, in August of 1959, you have the second Rip Hunter. In December 1959, or in October 1959, Green Lantern is in Showcase number 22. In March of 1960, Justice League of America. Green Lantern #1 is released in August of 1960. Rip Hunter #1 in April of 1961. It's not until November of 1961 that Marvel Comics enters the fray with Fantastic Four #1. But I was talking about why I don't necessarily think The Flash was the most important comic. Actually, to me, the Silver Age should kick off with Jimmy Olsen, Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen #1, which predates all of these. It was in October 1954. Yes, it was a Superman comic, which is probably why they don't count it as the first Silver Age. That doesn't make it any less of an important comic. The Silver Age lasted until, I'm going to say, 1968. Some people might put it a little sooner than that. But yeah, 1968. You have the Marvel era of comics. I don't like to call it a Marvel age because it wasn't really an age. The Marvel era of comics, you have Fantastic Four, the Incredible Hulk. You have Spider-Man's first appearance. You have Daredevil. You have X-Men. All of these are new comics. And suddenly, Marvel Comics hit their limit. And in order to produce another comic, another title, they had to delete a title because they had this agreement with their distribution company, which was the same one that did DC. And DC had more of a contract with them. DC could publish as much as they want. Marvel was limited to the number of titles they could publish. So they ended up having to kill off the Hulk and move him to Tales to Astonish in order to publish another comic. That's the way it goes. They would cancel a comic so they could start a new one. They didn't have a choice. They were limited in the number of titles they could produce until 1968. In 1968, Marvel was no longer limited to that contract because they got a new company to distribute their comics, a new news company. It all went out to the same channels, basically, but it was a new company, and they were allowed to expand. And suddenly you have the first Iron Man comic, Iron Man and Submariner #1, Iron Man, Submariner #1. Tales to Astonish becomes The Incredible Hulk. Tales of Suspense becomes Doctor Strange. You just have an explosion. Captain Marvel gets his own title. Marvel Superheroes starts. The reprint titles start going really strong. Conan #1 the next year in 1969. I would argue that Conan #1, even though you have this explosion of comics from Marvel, it's really the end of the Silver Age. Conan #1 is the comic that I would say starts the Bronze Age. A lot of people say it's later, but I say Conan #1. And the reason for that is because you have Conan #1 kicking off all of the sword and sorcery comics of the early 70s. An explosion of them. I mean, there was like 20 to 40 comics that all were based in sword and sorcery. But the Bronze Age continued past that. And then you have Wolverine showing up, and you have the Punisher showing up, and you have Morbius showing up. Those are the three big characters from Marvel's expansion for the Bronze Age, aside from Conan. Tomb of Dracula was in the horror vein, which is kind of associated with swords and sorcery, but not really. So Bronze Age lasted, I'm going to say, into early 80s, early to mid 80s. In 1984, around May of 1984, you had two comics that came out almost at the same time. They actually came out earlier than that. They're cover dated May of 1984. And this kicks off what I call the Copper Age, or the third. No, this would be the fourth heroic age, but it's not really a heroic age. It's more of an expansion, an explosion of independence. There have always been independent comics, but not like they were after 1984. And what kicked it off? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 by Eastman and Laird. It blew up. Suddenly you had everybody and their brother producing independent comics. As a side note, this is also about the time that Marvel Superhero Secret Wars was first released, which of course starts the black costume, which of course ends up with Spider-Man 300 and Venom. Copper Age. I credit the Copper Age with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1. And continues to around 1991. Then you have another explosion of comics. Another big release. A comic that had such an impact on the industry that people went nuts. Spawn #1. Yes, there were other Image comics, but Spawn #1 had the biggest impact, and is still published to this day. Savage Dragon, of course, is also published periodically. Savage Dragon didn't go away; it's still around. But nothing compares to Spawn #1 until you get to, and I'm going to call that the fourth heroic age. I think that's what I put in my notes, the fourth heroic age. The next big impact on comics, and what I consider starts the modern age of comics, The Walking Dead #1. Had the biggest impact on collectors since Spawn #1's release. Spawn #1 you can still buy for 20, 30 bucks. Because there's tons of them out there. Walking Dead #1 you can't buy for that. Of course, I don't really want to buy it because I'm not into the whole zombie thing or zombie apocalypse thing. But I recognize it as a very important comic in the industry, and I think that's what kicks off the current modern age. Of course, the modern age varies. It's always the modern age. Whatever's being published now is the modern age. And for me, the modern age starts in 1970. Because I bought those comics off the rack. Those were new comics. That's my modern age. My modern age. Yeah, you're going to argue with me. You're going to tell me I'm crazy, I'm stupid, I'm an idiot. That's obviously not the modern age. But hey, I'm old. What's modern for me is bronze for you, okay? Don't forget, anytime you handle your comics, wash your hands. It's good for your comics. It's good for your health. Bye.